In this video, we're going to look at Papa John's interviews, and I'm going to show you what questions they ask and how to pass the interview so you can land a job with Papa John's. So let's start with the most important question, which they usually ask in the interview, which is, what is your availability? And if you don't have a good answer for this, it's going to really hurt your chance of getting the job. So I'm going to show you how you can answer this question effectively. The first thing you have to do is be flexible. You want to be able to offer as wide a range of times as you can. The more flexibility you can offer, the better your chances are of getting the job. The next thing you want to do is say what Papa John's actually wants to hear. What times are they interested in? What times are the store going to be busy? And you're going to match your answer to that. The next thing you're going to have to do is have a can-do attitude. If they ask about certain times and you just keep saying, no, I can't do that time, I can't do that time, they're not going to hire you. You've got to have this positive can-do attitude. The next thing you want to do is show commitment. And the way that people mess up this question is they instantly start talking about all of the times that they can't do. They give a list of, I can't do this time, I can't do this time, I can't do this time, and it's very negative and it will stop you getting the job. The next thing you want to do is try and actually plan a perfect answer. So I'm going to show you what a really great answer looks like, and if it applies to you, you can actually just take this answer to your interview. So you start by saying, I have very good availability and would be able to work the full range of Papa John's opening hours. Then you go on to say, I understand that evenings and weekends are the busiest times for the business. I'm available for shifts at this time if needed. So you're covering the number one time that they're interested in, which is evenings and weekends. That's when people tend to buy pizza. And then you're showing off that you have great availability, which is what they're looking for. So if you can, go with that perfect answer, show as much flexibility as you can, and try and say yes to everything that they are asking, because every time you say no to certain times, the chance of getting the job go down. The next question you need to look at is, what do you know about Papa John's? And there is no point going to an interview without having actually researched the company, because it looks really bad. And if they ask you about the business and you don't know very much, it's really, really, really negative. So the first thing you have to do is get in the obvious facts. What are the things that everybody knows about the business? Then you need to show that you've actually done some research. And then to get an even stronger answer, you have to show that you've actually done some really great preparation, that you've taken the time to really understand the business. And the good news for you is I'm going to go through the key facts that you need to take to your interview so you're ready to go. Now, the way you always start this question is to start with the most obvious facts to make sure you've covered those. So, the first thing you say is that Papa John's is a pizza restaurant chain. Then you go on to list the main products. So, their business is based around pizza, chicken wings, and desserts. That makes up the majority of their sales. Then you can go on and say their slogan, which is better ingredients, better pizza, Papa John's. That's the go to slogan for the company. It's all about having high quality, good ingredients for their pizzas to make great pizza. Then you talk about the fact that it's a franchise led business. So it's most likely that you're applying to a franchised store, which means that it's not owned by Papa John's itself. They just give someone else the rights to run their brand in return for some franchise fees. So you may be applying directly to the owner of a particular location who has opened that as their own business, or you might be applying to a franchise that is a group of stores that have a certain area that they run. So make sure you try and find out what you're actually applying to. The next thing you want to say is that they specialize in carry out and delivery. Only a small number of locations actually have seating. The vast majority of sales across Papa John's are either delivered to the customer or someone orders and comes in and collects it. Then you can go on and say that the company was founded by a man called John Schnatter, and it was founded all the way back in 1984. The company was started in a converted broom closet, so he just knocked through and built a simple area to cook pizza along with his father's business, and that's how the start of the company was. The company is now much, much, much larger. It's NASDAQ listed and currently trades under the stock ticker that's quite interesting of PZZA, as in pizza. The company was also quite notable in that it was the first to offer online ordering among the big pizza retailers. That was very early in the development of the internet. The company is headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia. It is now expanded internationally and is in lots and lots of different countries all over the world. And then the last thing that you should know about the company is look up the current loyalty program. So that is, if you spend so much, you get free things, and understand how that program works. It changes every so often. So look up what the loyalty program is in your local area and make sure you learn that before interview. The next tip, if you want to really go into detail, you can read Papa John's International's annual report. It's called the Form 10K. Just Google that and it'll come straight up. And also take some time to learn the menu. I don't mean memorize it completely, but have a good familiarity with the products that the company is selling. And that's always good advice. So feel free to screenshot this page or take any notes from it. And these are the facts that you can take to your Papa John's interview to be really well prepared for this question. The next question that is likely to come up is, what previous experience do you have? And to be successful in this question, you don't just want to list the jobs that you've had. You want to actually do a bit more, show off those skills that you have gained. So the first thing you do is you give your last job title. So go through the jobs that you've had recently and list all of the experiences that you've got. Then the thing that people miss out is to say, what were your responsibilities? What did you actually do in those jobs? Say, for example, you worked in a restaurant. You were responsible for taking customers' orders. You dealt with customer complaints. You maintained the store environment. You did cleaning. You supported other people in the business. Maybe you were involved in training up a new member of staff that joined, that they were buddied up with you, so you got experience of staff training. Just something as simple as being a waiter or a waitress in a restaurant actually gets you lots of experience and lots of different skills you can pick up, and you can talk about all the different things, for example, you've done. So think about every job you've had and what you actually did and what you learned, and say that. Then you want to just have ready in the back of your mind a good reason for leaving. So they may ask, why did you leave that job? And you may talk about you relocated, your partner got another job somewhere else, that you looked at another opportunity and this new opportunity was really great. And that's why you moved. It was a promotion. It was a job that was closer to home. So some good reason that doesn't say anything negative about your previous employer. And then you want to always link to the Papa John's job. So you want to say, you've had this experience and this is how it's going to help me be really good at Papa John's. So for example, I've got lots of experience working with customers. I've developed good customer service skills and I hope to bring that to Papa John's. Simple things like that. Then when you think about what they're actually looking for in this question. So the tips for success is to show off customer service experience and be positive about previous jobs that you've had. Ultimately, what they want to see is that you've got relevant experience and you've got the right skills. And if you answer it right, any previous experience you've had, you can make it link to the job. And then things that don't look good that you have to be able to explain away are any gaps in your employment record. So why weren't you working at certain times? Make sure you've got an explanation ready. Never criticize a former employer. If you say bad things about previous employers, even if they were awful, it's going to really hurt you. And then if you had really negative experiences in your career, you need to be ready to not go into massive amounts of detail about it and not draw attention to it, but also be ready in case they ask about that with a good response. Because they may probe your career history, especially if you give them a resume and they know and can see these things. You need to be ready for questions about that. The next question that you want to be ready for is, what is your greatest weakness? And this is not one you want to make up in the interview, because if you get it wrong, it can harm your chance of getting the job. You can pick the wrong weakness. So let's look at some ways to answer this question. I'll give you some suggestions for weaknesses that you can use in your interview that are real weaknesses, but they don't care about. So you want to start by choosing an actual weakness. So don't say something like, I have to admit that I'm a real perfectionist. That's not a real weakness. Don't bother with it. Then think about how you're going to fix your weakness. And then the most important thing is it has to be irrelevant to a Papa John's job. So something that if they hear as a weakness, they're going to go, well, we don't care. That is your goal. Then you want to absolutely avoid saying one thing like this. So I have absolutely foul body odor that attracts complaints from customers. That's the sort of thing that's going to stop you getting hired. That's why it's so important to pick a weakness they don't care about. When you've picked your weakness, and I'm going to suggest some, the way you answer it is very simple. So you say, a weakness I'm aware of is, say what your weakness is, and then say, in future, I plan to develop to overcome this by, and say what you're going to do to make your weakness go away. The ideas for weaknesses could be things like delegation. If you're not applying for a management role, you're not likely to be delegating to anyone. Public speaking, if you're working at Papa John's, you're probably not going to stand on stage and give a speech to 10,000 people. It's not likely to be something that's going to be in your everyday job. So if that's a weakness, they really don't mind. Saying no, if people ask you to do something, if you have a tendency to say yes, so maybe you take on too much, that's not a really big weakness that's going to be a problem here. If you're not great at maths, or if you struggle with spelling complex words, that's really not going to be wildly important unless you're going for a management role. So you could use that as your weakness. So that's how you survive the greatest weakness question. Make sure it's something they don't care about, but is a real weakness, and talk about things that you could do to overcome that weakness. Let's move on to some quick and simple questions that they could ask. One common question that has been asked regularly in Papa John's interviews is, can you work weekends and evenings? And the answer is very simple. You just have to say yes. Remember, you're applying to Papa John's, where the majority of their sales happen on weekends and in the evenings, particularly when there are sports matches on. Sports matches don't tend to be scheduled for 9 o'clock in the morning. That's not a time which would be very good for holding a massive sports game, for example. So if you're saying no to this, then they're really going to think, are you the right person to hire? It's not really meeting their business needs. So if you are going to say no to this, be prepared to probably not get the job. That's why I'm saying you kind of have to say yes. The next question is, do you have reliable transport to get to work? Very simple question. You have to say yes to it, though you need to actually think about how you're going to get there and have an answer ready. So the ideal one is to say that you've got your own new transport that is very reliable. You've got your own car. That would be a brilliant answer, but that doesn't apply to everyone. The next best answer is to say I'm within walking or cycling distance. So that is very reliable. If you can't walk to work, well, you've got a much bigger problem probably. So that's a perfectly fine answer. The next answer is to say you've got public transport, so you've got good transport links. Say that you will get the earlier bus or the earlier train, that you're not going to get the last one. You're always going to be on time. And then you've got a good plan B ready. So, for example, if the bus was cancelled, you do have people you could go to who, on occasion, would get you to work. So you're on time. You're not going to be late. So emphasize not being late and having a plan to get there. The next one is particularly important if you're applying for a delivery role. If you're not, you might want to skip forward to the last bit of this video where I give you some suggestions of questions that you can ask them in the interview. If you are applying for a job that involves delivery, they may ask, do you have a clean driving record? Some things you need to be aware of is, firstly, you have to be honest. They can check, and if they're going to let you use a company-owned vehicle or drive with advertising with their brand on it, they will do checks on you. So don't lie. Then you need to look at your license. So actually take it out, look at it, and say exactly what's on it. Whatever is on that license, you need to say, because you're going to have to give them it. So make sure you say what it says, because they're going to see it. The only one thing to be aware of if you do have some negative things on your license is that you have to check the local laws. So look at the laws in your state or in your country. Often driving convictions or points on your license spend. So if it was 23 years ago that you were involved in some sort of traffic incident and it got recorded, it may be that that's actually expired and you don't even have to legally mention it because it was so long ago. So check the individual rules if you have anything negative to see whether you have to disclose that or not. Then we can look at the perfect answer. So the perfect answer would be to say, I have a full clean license. That's a perfect thing to say. Then for anybody who's got a little bit more experience driving, you can say, I've been driving for, and then say how many years. The higher the year, the better. If you've never had an insurance claim, that's a good fact to bring to your interview. If you've never had a parking ticket, now's a good time to mention it. It's a positive thing. It may apply to you, it may not. You could say that you're a safe and courteous road user. That's a nice phrase. And you could say also that you're aware that when you're driving for the company that you're representing the brand, and so you say, I will represent the brand well on the road, and when I'm driving, I am a representative of your brand. So if I'm not driving safely, that reflects badly on the company, and that is just not acceptable. It's very important to be a safe driver at all times. Then to finish, here are some great questions you could ask after your Papa John interview. They may say, do you have any questions for us? And you want to have some ready to go. So here's some of my suggestions. Make sure you have 2 to 3 questions ready to go. Looks very bad if you say no at the end of the interview. So some suggestions. Can you let me know what the next steps are in the hiring process at this Papa John's? Make sure you're showing you're really interested in getting the job and you want to find out what happens next. You could say, can you tell me about the team that you've built at this Papa John's location, and show a real interest in learning about your colleagues? You may want to ask, what would you say a great Papa John's makes a great Papa John's employee? What actually is a good employee? And then you can look at yourself, your experiences, and your skills and see how you match up to that. And you can go over the strongest points of your interview. The next one you could ask about is, what do you enjoy most about working at Papa John's? And when they say the things that they really like about the company and working there, you can share in their enthusiasm and be really positive about the company. Then you can say that one question should be made up at the interview if possible. So listen to what they're saying, and if there's something you wonder about, now is a good time to ask it, because you may, throughout the interview, be wondering about certain things that they've said and may want clarification, so you can ask about it then. Things to definitely avoid is never ask about a pay rise. So if the job is advertised a specific salary, don't try and negotiate higher before you've even been offered the job. It's unlikely you'll be able to negotiate, and basically pricing yourself out during your interview is a terrible idea. Don't ask about transferring to another location, because it may be that that franchise may be owned by one person and they're trying to staff their store that they own. They are not interested in you going to work for another location. That's not helpful to them, and it's going to cause them problems. Even if they're just a manager of that store, they're going to have to re-advertise to get someone new. It's just a nuisance. Don't mention it. Holidays is another thing not to ask about, and delaying the start date is not a very positive thing to bring up in your interview. So I hope this video was helpful to you. Please post in the comments your experiences at interview and what questions they ask, and if you got the job. If this was helpful, please like and subscribe below. And finally, thank you very much for watching.